The question is that this bill now be read a second time. I call the member for Braddon.
Well, thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, it saddens me today. It's with a very heavy heart that I rise to speak on this amendment to the Hate Crimes Bill of 2024, the second reading. It saddens me because whilst this is necessary at this point in time, in Australia's history, in the way I view and the way most Australians view Australia, it should never be necessary. It should have been stamped out from the very start. It shouldn't have been allowed to escalate to the levels and the hurt and the evil that it has got to at this point in time. And it's for that very reason that it saddens me. It saddens me that the leadership has been lacking for so long. Deputy Speaker, I come from the profession of arms. I've spent the majority of my life being deployed to all sorts of places for that very reason, to combat evil. Mostly, we stand in front of those being persecuted with a weapon system, and we protect them from that evil. So I know a little bit about wiping evil out and eliminating evil from the earth. And there's an old saying that goes right back to the Romans. It's in Latin, and it's the phrase, "So we pacem para bellum." And that means in strength comes peace. And unless you have strength, and unless you have the leadership that demonstrates that, you will never have peace. And unfortunately, that's what we've gotten to. That lack of leadership has allowed this festering serpent to develop and grow to the point that it is spitting venom at those most vulnerable. I think that the actions of this government have lacked that leadership and that strength and that power and that force in stamping this out, and that's why that escalation has taken place. I actually visited last year. I visited Israel at the request of my good friend, the ambassador, Amir Mossad. And Amir and I, he served a life in the Israeli Special Forces in Mossad. He was an electronic warfare Special Forces operator working for the Israeli army around about the same time as I was posted to the Middle East. So we have kinship there, and we have become very close. And I saw a very hardened man, a tough man, a strong man, a man with conviction and leadership, a man that deeply loves his country and was in another country representing the interests of Israel and that relationship between Australia and our friends in Israel, that great democracy. And I saw him heartbroken. I saw him bent over, heartbroken, because of what was happening to his beautiful country and his beautiful people. There, unprovoked, a listed terrorist organisation, the head of evil, had unprovoked attacks on their precious country. 1,200 people dead. I visited the kibbutz Kfar Aza down south. You could see the photos. They had the photos up outside the kibbutz. You could see the bloodstains and the bullet chips inside. You could smell, after they'd been there, these horrible, evil creatures and burnt the place. This evil was committed in places that were supposed to be secure. There was no warning. Those hostages that were taken, can you imagine what that would be like in your town or suburb where you live today? Can you imagine what that would be like if 240 people were taken hostage, sexually abused, mutilated? There's a thing called the 46 minutes, and it's a chest cam footage which they captured off Hamas operatives, where they were proud and boasting about killing, beheading, mutilating, raping dead bodies of innocent Israelis. You imagine what would happen if that happened here. So in retaliation and trying to get those hostages back, we went on a world quest on who was right and who was wrong. And so the chants began. And so the hitchhikers jumped on to this thing that got a few headlines. Half those chants, the river to the sea, if you ask those people what river and what sea, they wouldn't have a clue. Or what it means. Or the destruction that I've just described. They wouldn't have a clue. They were just there for the headline, for the footage, and to get on television. And that's when the government should have stepped in. And that's when the government should have been strong. And that's when that head should have been cut from that evil snake. Because now that snake is bred and there are many serpents. And they are out all over the place, conducting evil on our beautiful country. And it should have been stopped out and wiped out a long time ago. And that's why I guess it's with heavy heart that I have to talk about this. My good friend, he's been like a brother to me, Josh Frydenberg, has been on the offensive, on the reactive trail, trying to get this message across, how important this was, how important it was for the government to step up. He turned himself inside out to get this message across. And whilst he's done a fantastic job, and I congratulate my brother in doing that, it fell on deaf ears. And it's not until now, it's not until that evil has been allowed to escalate, develop and to dig in, that we've decided to finally do something about it. And I worry, Deputy Speaker, I worry that this measure is all happening far, far too late. Deputy Speaker, the other issue that I want to raise, and it's in relation to this bill, and whilst it's all well and good to have a bill and a criminal code amendment to this bill so that we can prosecute evildoers, this is a cultural act, and this cultural act needs to be cut off at the knees. It's up to every leader at every level, at state level, at local government level, at community group level. It's up to every person on the street to condemn this as strongly as possible. No, I'm not talking about vigilante action, but what I am talking about is if they know that everybody condemns this in such a bitter way, then maybe they might cease and desist a little. If we don't give them the air that they so desperately need and the fanfare and the headlines, then maybe they mightn't be so keen to recommit the same offence. But my Jewish brothers and sisters, and I mentioned this in my valedictory speech when I was describing Peter Dutton, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart, Deputy Speaker, when I said that I have faith in him, I see a strength in him, I see moral courage in him, and I know that you, Peter Dutton, will protect that little girl. She's too frightened to go to school. It's because she's Jewish. That's not the Australia that I grew up in. And that's not the Australia that he believes in either. That's the sort of leadership we should have had 12 months ago on this. That's the sort of leadership that Australia really needed. That's the sort of leadership that will return Australia back to the great country that it's always been. The actual bill itself amends many things, but apart from a deterrent, it also gives the ability to remove the offender from the ability to recommit the same offence. And whilst that's a good thing, I think that needs to be strengthened. I don't feel that this bill is anywhere near strong enough. And as far as I'm concerned, if you are going to commit such an evil act that is so against Australian values, Australian culture and traditions, and the very essence of what we stand for as a country, the very accepting, non-racist country that we stand for. If you are going to act and carry on like that, then there's no place here for you, as far as I'm concerned. So they're the sorts of measures that I think need to be looked at when we start being serious in developing this particular legislation. Australia is, it always has been, and I think after this episode and with some strong leadership, with some strong guidance and stamping this out, we can return to that country that I'm so proud of. A country that accepts people from all over the world, irrespective of your race, your religion, the colour of your skin, or anything else for that matter. We value you as a human being, the very essence of your soul, your hearts. That's what it means to be an Australian. And to be an Australian, in relation to the matters that I'm talking about today, means joining with our Jewish friends, supporting them, and espousing this terrible, hideous crime we're talking about. The problem doesn't necessarily stop with this particular issue and the anti-Semitism issue that I'm talking about. What I'm concerned about, Deputy Speaker, is where does this start and stop? Where does this end up? If we allow this to happen, it's very similar to any action. If you allow one little thing to happen, then it will escalate and something else will happen. So what next? Does that then lead to attacks on a Catholic church, the Anglican church? Does it stop with childcare centres, or where does this stop? And that's what I'm getting back to. If we don't apply that theory, that age-old theory of in strength comes peace, if we don't apply enough strength, then that serpent will continually strike, and it will come back, and it will return in even stronger forms. And that's what I fear. I fear that whilst we're sitting here debating this particular amendment, I wonder sometimes whether it's simply something that we have to keep the masses quiet. If this had come 12 months ago, then maybe it would have come as a normal means of governance, good leadership, and applying that strength. The weakness has led in evil. That evil has developed. Innocent people are being hurt. Innocent people are being crushed. Their hopes, their dreams, their security. There's not many people in this place. There's not many people today watching this particular show on television. There's not too many that knows what it's like to have your life in the wind, whether it's here 1 second and gone the next. And that's what those Jewish people in those communities feel. They're wondering whether they're going to make it home. Imagine what those children... Imagine your own children. They're our brothers and sisters. Israel is our friend. They still haven't got their people home. They still haven't got their daughters and their sons home. There's still the damage there. Those bullet holes that I talked about, that blood-stained wall is still there, Deputy Speaker. Those scars will never leave. They will never heal. But the last thing we need is more damage and more evil by simply not applying enough strength. And that's all I say today. So we pacem parabellum. In peace, we need strength.
The question is that this bill now be read a second